All right. So I didn't bring a koan to discuss tonight. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I guess it's a little bit gauche to even say it out loud, right? But I sort of wanted to talk about the whole notion of enlightenment and what that is about, and like this pre-existing thing that we all have, but that also sort of seems like a finish line that we're supposed to get to. And um, I wanted to start with that, with sort of reflecting on what I thought I was doing when I started studying seriously and how that evolved over time. Um, so I started studying in 1996. One of my best friends, who's still a best friend, and is now my Zen teacher. His name is Josh Dinan White. So Josh was my roommate in London, England, for a study abroad program. And he had, like, over the summer, he got into Zen. And because he was a martial arts teacher, and we did martial arts together. He was my martial arts teacher before he was my Zen teacher. And over the summer, his martial arts teacher took him to Zen Mountain Monastery, and he was like, "Oh wow, this is so cool." So then I ended up with this roommate who's like meditating and chanting weird stuff, and I kind of had the choice of, like, I could either just sit there and be like, or I could join in. But when I joined in, I found that the meditation was incredibly helpful, and that I started to feel better and less anxious, and had all these positive benefits. And so that was how it started. That was in '96. But in 2000, he had, after college, moved to Boulder, Colorado, and there was a Zen teacher living out there named Jerry Shishin Wick, who was one of Maizumi Roshi's descendants. And in 2000, I moved out there, and then right after that, we were invited to move into a lay Zen center that he was creating, which was essentially just a residential program where, like, a bunch of people in his sangha bought houses in the same neighborhood, and then they rented out some of the rooms to people who, like, I was a postgraduate by 2 years, graduated 2 years ago. I graduated college. Like, I couldn't buy a house, right? So, I rented a room, and so did Josh. But I remember really vividly that Shishin would say things, like, there's nothing to attain. You already have it. And I would sit there on the cushion and I would think, yeah, but he's got something I don't have. Like, he's just keeping the secret sauce. Eventually he'll give us the secret sauce, right? And then I would sit through whole sessions, week of meditation, like trying to find the secret sauce, And what that ultimately was is I was pursuing a state, right? So step one is, there's a state I don't have or don't experience, the having and experiencing of which would make everything better. And clearly, like, this guy, he studied with, like, the founder of the White Plum, like, he clearly has it. So if I hang out with him enough, I'll get it, right? He'll give it to me. And he's even talking that way. He's saying, like, well, we'll transmit the Dharma, or, we're, like, something is being passed on. Because that's the paradox, right? Is there is something being passed along down through the generations. But what is it? When the Buddha, in the transmission of the light, the second case is about Mahakashapa, who is the Buddha's successor. And so the way that story goes, the Buddha is giving a talk and he just holds up a flower. And the Mahakashapa, of all the people, there's, like, imagine, 500 people in attendance or whatever, there's a huge throng. And this one monk smiles, just, and the Buddha goes, I transmit my Dharma to him. He gets it. Well, what is it that he gets? Like, what is going on with these people? He holds up a flower, the other guy smiles, now he gets it, now he's the Buddha's successor. Clearly, there's something hidden here that, my teacher has that I don't have. Must be. Why else would I go listen to this person? And so, I have this saying, if I don't envy your life, I won't take your advice. So it becomes super tricky, and the more you try to talk about it, often the further away you move from it. And this is why the role of the Zen teacher truly is to encourage sitting. We chant to develop energy to sit. We do Daison to help us work with the things that come up when we sit, right? The point is to sit. Why is that? Because this thing that we already possess, right, this Buddha nature, right, this being that we are, which has no fixed characteristic, the not fixedness of it is what allows it to respond and function so well in the face of everything. But we wanna, it's very natural to overlay, like, okay, but I wanna be in this state, right? So when people act in a way that is difficult, I wanna respond like this. I wanna respond and live in a way that makes other people treat me this way, right? I wanna control my reality. The problem with that is, one, you can't, and two, like, the things that come up that create challenges already exist, and they arise out of beginningless karma, meaning that, like, the things that people do arise out of the conditions and causes and experiences of their life, and also the neurological wiring that's created by the patterns that they've experienced over their lifespan. So by the time I get in the room with a human being and I'm interacting with them, I'm not just interacting with them, I'm interacting with the entirety of their experience. And so how much can I do to change their response to me? So now my fixed me is showing up and being like, okay, well, if I do this and this and this, and I pull these levers, then I'll get this result out of this person. And I'm like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, like the depth of everyone's expression of their humanity is so complex that it's vast. And that's why we say, the dharmas are boundless, because there's no end to the depth that you can plumb to understand why it is that we are the way we are and why we react the way we react. And so then this thing that we experience when we sit, this simple thing of just like we sit here and things come up and we notice them and we let them go, right? We notice, we accept, we let go, we return. That simple process is a mirror for human existence, that things come into our field of awareness and we notice them. We accept them because they've already showed up. Like maybe 15 years ago or so, I was throwing a Christmas party with my wife. And at the time, we both worked at the Apple store. We were selling computers. And so, that store had probably 100 employees. And so the Christmas party was pretty big because we invited all our Apple friends and it was a multi-generational party with many, relatives and family and friends. And okay, so imagine, a big festivities, and this man that was like very, very like high, like not like he'd had a couple beers, but like high, like altered and struggling. Like I see this man that I don't know, just fumbling around in my living room. And I was like, excuse me, do I know you? And he was like, where's Brendan? And it was like, his eyes were like this, right? I was like, there's no Brendan named Brendan here. And he was like pawing at me and kind of falling on me. And so it turns out this poor man had like maybe smoked some bad weed or something and had wandered away from a different Christmas party like a mile away and had just wandered into our house. And no one knew him. He wasn't, and also we were not having that kind of party, right? Like no one was, people might be having a glass of wine, but no one was like, taking whatever it was he was on, because he was like, but this person is like life. Like he's in my house. He's already here. There's no, like I can't, well maybe if I, say the right things, he'll leave. Like he's here. It's too late. And this is what our existence is like, is that the things that really matter have already showed up. And of course I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'll tell you the resolution with Brendan. So I asked him to leave, and he like went out the front door. I was like, you can't be here, man. I don't know you. And and he went out the front door, And then he just started walking up down the sidewalk going, Brandon, Brandon. And so then I was like, oh, okay, I kind of feel bad for him now. Like, but I tried to go help him, but he like wouldn't, he couldn't, you know, so we called the police. And they're like, well, do you want us to press charges and arrest him? I'm like, no, I want you to find Brendan. And so, you know, ultimately the punchline is that, you know, the police came and they helped him and he was able to find his friend and they used his cell phone, they got the friend, and it all worked out. Nobody got arrested, everybody was happy. You know, it wasn't, but life is like a stranger in your house who isn't responsive to your overtures, just kind of fumbling around, and like you keep trying to come up with the right tactic to get it to adjust to the place you want it. And that is actually the problem, right? The problem is not that there's a man in my house asking for Brendan. The problem is if I don't accept it and deal with it, right? I mean, what am I gonna do? Like shove him in the basement and go to bed? You know, of course not. But we do that psychologically all the time. Like all the time we do that in our minds, right? We just don't deal with things, you know? And so, you know, enlightenment is working directly with what is as it is, like as it arises. And that means you're simultaneously working with what's coming up for you, and you're working with what's coming up in your space. And there's this like interesting constant reset button that you have. It's this gift that we all have, that we can always come back. The Sanskrit word for mindfulness can also be translated as remembering. And I love that, because think about like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I will sometimes be just not present, you know, or be reactive. And then I'll hurt someone's feelings, or, you know, I'll be unskillful, or I'll find myself in a fit of anxiety, right? Whatever's, you know, I'll be in a mind state that's unhealthy and unhelpful. And then I'll go, oh yeah, I need to let that go. Oh yeah, I need to apologize. Oh yeah, I'm so sorry, right? It's like that. Like mindfulness is like that. We come back. We come back. But the trap is, so now I'm going to be in the mindful state. Now I'm going to be in the enlightened state. There's got to be, and this is the confusion that I had when I lived at Shishin's place, is there's got to be a version of me that is the enlightened version of me that's going to make all of this better. And the good news is you already have it, and the bad news is it's not a version of you, right? It also has, like, it doesn't have, because there is no you, nothing has any fixed characteristic, including your awakening. So, you know, if you're trying to get to a state where you stop having complexity and confusion and issues, you aren't going to get there, right? The liberation is the freedom to respond in the moment to what comes up from full authenticity, from full awareness, from full presence, and then be as skillful as you can. I had a friend, speaking of the Apple Store, I had a friend who worked at the Apple Store who was a former Marine, and he was a combat medic, and then he had a job, his name was Keith, and he had a job working for the, I think it was Baltimore, he had the fire department, he was an EMT, fireman, EMT. And he would talk about, sometimes he would walk up on like a motorcycle crash or something, and the person would, he's you know, he's a Marine, so he's a little bit crass. He'd say, and I'd see that man was already circling the drain, right? Meaning that person was gonna die. And he knew it, because he'd had so much experience that he could just look and be like, I'm too late. You know, that person's circling the drain. He's like, I'd try anyway, and every once in a while we'd save him, you know, but sometimes not. But like, so, you know, nobody comes to practice because of the stuff that's easy, right? We come to practice because of the stuff that's hard, the stuff that causes suffering, the things where we walk up on a situation in our life and it's already a problem, it's already circling the drain. Like there isn't a solution that readily, like we want there to be a new agey, you know, well, if you just, you know, do ABC, then it'll be resolved. And it's like, don't resolve things, metabolize them. Right? And what I mean by metabolize is like, so you walk up on a situation in your life where things are not good. Okay, well, let's bring 100% of our faculties to bear on that, right? Our full mindfulness, our full presence. That's our enlightenment, right? Practice enlightenment, right? Think of it as one word, right? Like I'm going to fully be right there. A hard thing is happening. I'm with that. An emotion is coming up around that. I allow that, right? I need to figure out what to do. I allow the possibilities of what I might do to come up in a way that I can examine them to see what might be skillful. I attempt to apply the precepts in a way that is skillful, supporting others, helping others, letting go of fixed notions of myself, nothing to defend, right? How can I be skillful? And then what's the skillful choice, right? Is it to walk away? Is it to engage? Is it to help? Is it to abandon? I don't know, I mean, sometimes you run into a burning building to save the cat and you save the cat. Sometimes you run into the burning building to save the cat and you burn too. So we don't know until that moment arises. So the thing we're sitting to attain, if it could even be said to be attainment, is capacity. It's the capacity to work with all of the things that emerge out of our human life. That's why we sit. Not to get to some finish line where now everything's better, because everything already is what it is. Everything is already functioning under the First Noble Truth, right? Which means there's still going to be difficulties. But it's not depressing, because there's still going to be joy. There's a koan that says, what is Buddha? Shit on a stick. There's another koan that asks about what is Buddha, and it's like, flowers in the garden, or trees in the wind, or, like a cup of tea watching the sunrise. That ability to experience unfiltered human life without seeking a particular state, not trying to fix anything, working skillfully with what is, allows the joy of a sunrise to be one of the most profound and mystical things you could ever experience. And it also allows you to be at someone's deathbed and just hold their hand and cry with them. And it's strange, is it suffering if it's fully flowing through you? Or not? I encourage you to explore that. Because if we're not attempting to adjust the knobs to get a certain version of me and a certain version of how I want to feel, a lot of cool things start to become possible. And a fearlessness can arise. Right? Just like, oh, well, something's going to happen and I'm going to cry about it. Guess I'll cry about it. It's okay. Something's going to happen and I'm going to feel a lot of joy. Okay. Ooh, something surprised me and now I'm feeling really different than I thought I would. Okay. Sit with that, and then that, and then that, and then that forever. That's what this is. It's brushing your teeth for human existence. All right, I think that's enough.